All right. Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm Jason Swenk. I just a little brief history, really quick. Ran an agency for 12 years. For the first time, grew it up to an 8-figure agency and sold it. And then I have another agency now, but I've been a coach and an advisor for thousands of agency owners over the past 8 years. And today I want to talk to you about going from an accidental agency owner to really kind of handpicking your clients and the right clients that are paying you enough. Now, back in 1998, if we go way back then, one of my friends looked just like Justin Timberlake. And literally, we used to get into bars for free and get drinks for free, everything. And I was like, let's take this a little step further. So I created a fake band, fake website called In Shit, and kind of making fun of NSYNC, a little parody. And it got really widely popular in the late 90s. And so that's how I got my start. That was my first website. And from there, people asked me, hey, can you design a website for me? And so I was an accidental agency owner. And it was just, I felt like I was at this fun stage where people kept coming, asking for websites. I was doing it. I was used to living off nothing. So my first websites were like $500. And then eventually, it started growing from there. But after a couple years in this fun stage, when it was just me, maybe some contractors, maybe I was making, I can't remember, maybe around 400, 500,000 a year, and that's really pretty good back then, by yourself. It's probably good right now as well. But I felt like, I was depending on just referrals, right? And I think a lot of you may be in that same, feeling. And I felt like, my sales cycles were getting longer. And I just felt like I was taking on the wrong clients. And at this stage, I started bringing on employees. I think at the time we were around 2 million in revenue. I think we had maybe about 10 or maybe 15 employees. And I remember getting to a point where I was looking at the bank account. That's how I did my budgeting, which I highly recommend you don't do. But I realized in about a week, I didn't think we could make payroll. And I was just like, man, what do I do? Like, do I just close the shop? Do I get a loan? What do I do? And it was really wearing on me. And you might have gone through this stage, or maybe you're going through this stage right now. And I remember my wife having a conversation with me and saying, hey, you've been miserable for quite a while, ever since you started bringing on employees, because when you start bringing on more employees, things start getting more complex. You need these systems in place. And I didn't have those, coming out of the fun stage. And she's like, well, why don't you just think about getting a job, just closing it up? Now, keep in mind, the agency was around 2 million at the time. And so I thought about it, and I started interviewing with a company called NASCAR. And they asked me really kind of 2 questions. What do you want to do every day? And what don't you never want to do? And I thought about it. I went home and I said, I kind of, on a sheet of paper, and all of you can do this exercise. I highly recommend you do this exercise. Get a sheet of paper, put your fist on the paper and draw a circle around it. And start with everything you never want to do ever again that you're doing now, and draw that outside the circle. And just really spend some time doing that. That's kind of what I did. And then after that, through a process of elimination, I was like, what do I love doing? And I drew that inside the circle. And what this allowed me to do was get clarity. And this is really the first system that you need, because look, a lot of us start our agencies as accidental agency owners, and we don't have that clarity of where we're going. We're just reacting to the market. Remember, like, someone came to me, asked me for a website, and then another was referred, and boom, 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 had all this business all across the board. I didn't have this clarity of where I wanted to go. I didn't have that North Star, right? Of going, well, I want to go after the automotive industry, or I need to go after the healthcare industry, or I need to specialize in doing websites around a particular technology, or I need to specialize around digital marketing in this particular field that I can dominate, that I know I can do a really well job. And what I also needed to do was I needed to find my core values. What do I believe in? Because what I believe in, my team has to believe in as well, rather than just getting someone that can actually do the job. When you start building the team, and at that time, I didn't have a vision of where we're going. I didn't have that North Star. My core values did not align with a lot of the people in the organization. And so everything had to flow through me. And I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine you're the captain of this cruise ship, and you're sailing from New York to London, and you tell everybody on the bridge or everybody on the boat, you haven't told them where you're going, but you say, anytime the boat changes course, come wake me up, because after about 8 hours, you're tired and you go to sleep. Well, every minute they're waking you up going, hey, the boat changed bearings and I need you to, fix it. And so you get up from your bunk, you go to the wheelhouse and you make the 1 degree correction. You go, okay, if it happens again. Well, if this keeps happening, you're going to get pretty frustrated, right? And what you want to have happen is you want to sleep like this kitty. You need some well-deserved rest. And so what I realized was there's really 5 roles for becoming, the CEO of your agency and really transforming from owner to a CEO. And the biggest one was I needed to set the vision and the direction of the agency and communicate it often. Okay. This will enable them to make the course corrections of the boat when it changes direction. They'll start making decisions. So now you're not the toll booth of your agency. And when you're able to do this, and look, you got to kind of sometimes set them up to fail, just kind of like if you guys have kids, you notice when they start walking, you can't be there all the time. They have to learn to fall, to get back up. And you have to do that with your team. And it's really hard. Look, when I'm talking to my mastermind members, this is a really big decision and really hard to do, but you need to do it. The next is I needed to coach and mentor my leadership team. Okay. So meaning I'm not coaching everybody. And a lot of times in the very beginning, you start off doing maybe quarterly reviews or annual reviews. I want to give you a hint. Don't do quarterly or don't do anything with reviews in it. No one wants to be reviewed. Okay. People want to be coached. So don't start off, hey, you suck here, 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 here. Oh, but you're good here. Remember, we're programmed as human beings to remember the first thing out of your mouth. So start off with the good and coach them and figure out where do your employees want to go? Do they want to own an agency one day? Maybe, but they probably don't know how hard it is. And so you show them how hard it is and they'll stay with you forever. I remember doing that quite often, but help them get to their goals and help them. The next, you need to be the face of the organization. And a lot of you may go, oh, well, eventually I want to sell it like you did. And if I'm the face of the organization, it's going to devalue my company. And that's not the case. Look at Gary Vaynerchuk's a great example. He's the face of the organization. He never works on a client project. That might be another thing you might be thinking, well, if I'm the face, everyone's going to want to work with me. It's all about how you set it up when you actually come in and set up your team for success. So you got to be the face of the organization. The next is you got to assist sales. So if you're doing all of sales, it kind of looks like the doctor going to do the valet of your car, open the door for you, make you fill out the forms, and then check your temperature and then tell you what's wrong with you. You're going to kind of devalue that. Be like, why are you doing everything? So you don't want to do all of sales. You want to assist sales. I like to say add color. I would always come in on the big deals like Lotus Cars or Hitachi or LegalZoom. I'd come in toward the end and just add a little bit of color. And then the last part is understand the financials. You don't have to be a whiz kid or at Excel and all the numbers, but hire the right people and set out the benchmarks that you need. Like, for example, a lot of agency owners just focus on top line revenue. You go, like with the current agency now, it's well over multiple 8-figure revenue in EBITDA, in profit. It doesn't matter on top line, it matters on your profit. So, just understand the financials. Now, when you achieve these roles, I'm going to tell you, you're going to be depressed and you're going to be like, yeah, whatever. You will be, because you'll start coming into meetings and people are like, no, Jason, I'm good. Oh, hey, do you need anything? No, I'm good. And I remember coming home and going to my wife, I was like, man, the agency doesn't need me. And she was really pretty smart. She's still really, really smart. She goes, it needs you for something else. It needs you for those 5 roles. So just remember that. The next system to setting it up where you can handpick your clients, now that you have the vision of where you're going, you have the right team, the core that believe in the same things that you believe, is now, and you know what particular market you're going after, now you can position in the right way. I see too many agencies, Huge is a great agency. If you go to their website, this is probably a long time ago. I don't know if maybe they still have a big H, but a lot of the smaller agencies copy the bigger agencies. And they copy what they're doing now rather than what got them there. And so you have to be kind of investigators if you want to kind of try to model success of how they got there. They didn't get there by putting a big H on their homepage. That's not very descriptive. They're positioned in the wrong way. Like, really? Just a big H? Or like this agency, it's just talking about, it's all focused on them. And what you'll realize is you look like a Me Too agency, and there's too many Me Too agencies out there. And you got to remember, companies don't buy from the best agencies. They buy from the agencies they know, trust, and understand. And in order to do that, you have to tell a different story. So usually I do this live, and this is live, but I heard a lot of people are doing the recording. But a lot of times I will go up to people in the audience and say, let me use you, and you come up on stage and I'll say, hey, imagine we're at a conference, which we are. And I go, hey, I'm Jason. I'm the best agency advisor in the world. I've helped thousands of agency owners, blah, 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 blah. I'm throwing up on you all about me. Well, you're going to be like, man, this guy's kind of a douchebag, right? Because I'm focused all on myself. And rather than, hey, Aaron, I'm Jason. Why don't you come to the conference? Is there a particular person that you want to meet? Is there something that you want, right? So I'm asking questions, focusing on them. So you got to remember, you cannot be the superstar in someone else's story, right? There only can be one Batman. And so when you make yourself Batman, you're making them Robin. And no one wants to wear those ugly green tights. What you need to do is you need to position yourself as Alfred, that trusted advisor that is advising the star in their story, which you're advising Batman. Because the advisor can see things that you might not be able to see. For example, my uncle used to work for Grumman, who builds the F-14 Tomcat. That F-14 is made famous in Top Gun. And he had a really cool job at the time. He would test the canopies for bird strikes. In order to test the canopies for bird strikes, you literally have a chicken gun. Now they put dead chickens in there, okay? Not live chickens, that would be cruel. So they put dead chickens in this chicken gun, they shoot it at the canopy breaks. Well, there's something wrong. Well, they kept shooting these dead chickens at the canopy and it kept breaking over and over and over again. They couldn't figure it out. So they reached out to NASA and they told them what they were doing. NASA wrote back one sentence for advice and something that they couldn't see: unfreeze the chicken. They were shooting frozen chickens. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't see any frozen chickens flying around, right? So it makes the chicken really hard. So moral of the story is you got to ask the right questions in order to position yourself as the trusted advisor, and you'll look very different. Like even if, for example, if you go to jasonswenk.com and go to my about page, most people on their about page, they talk about all the stuff that they've done. Oh, I sold a big agency. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Who freaking cares? If you look at my website on the about page, it starts off by asking questions. Hey, are you looking for a community of like-minded agency owners, right? Are you looking to scale your agency faster? you may be in the right place. And then I go through a story about, about them. And then at the very end, I'll go, oh yeah, I sold an agency, blah, 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 or whatever it is, right? At the very end. Okay. So make sure you focus on them. So the next system is really around offering. So now that we have clarity where we're going, we're positioned in the right way. Now we have to make sure we have the right offering. And a lot of people start off with pitching really kind of marriage right off the bat. And I don't know if you went up to your significant other on the first date or the first time you saw them and asked them to marry you, they'd probably say no. And if they did say yes, they're probably the wrong freaking person, right? That's kind of scary. And so you have to change your offering. And the easiest way to change your offering and to really build that trust is you need to start off with a foot in the door offer, something that's very simple, something that's very easy, less not risky for them. So like, I'll show you an example. I had one of our first clients was an SEO agency, and they were doing $5,000 a month retainers. And I said, are they on contract? Or like, how long's your contract? Oh, month to month. Why is it on contract? Well, it's easier to sell. And ultimately they wanted to sell their business one day. And I said, well, I buy agencies and I've also sold agencies. If I'm looking at a business that doesn't have a predictable model, like longer-term contracts, I'm going to devalue you. He was like, well, how would you sell longer-term contracts? I said, well, it's all about building trust. What if we went to them and said, let's do a blueprint to map out what you're doing and literally come up with a solution for you. And here's the possible solution that could happen. You'll love the plan. You'll go execute it yourself. Number two, you'll love the plan. You'll want our help, which is the most common. Or three, you don't like the plan, I'll give you your money back. So there's nothing for you to lose. And I'm doing the foot in the door offer with them. That's really important, rather than doing that stupid audit that a lot of SEO agencies do and then present this 30-page document that no one understands, no one probably reads, and it's just a waste of time. And then what you're doing in that blueprint, you're trying to figure out what they want and what's their biggest challenge. And then you start positioning a smaller project in order to solve that challenge. And that smaller project could be like, so like, for example, on this SEO client, and they basically hold on to their clients for about 6 months, and they would charge 5,000. So they're making 30,000 every client that they sign up, which a lot of you would be like, oh, that's kind of good. But when I tell you the results of just making this small change in your offering, you'll be like, oh, that's a lot better. So we would start off with a $2,500 foot in the door, which would lead to a 3-month project, which we charge 15,000. So I basically came up with it. I just said, look, you're normally charging 5,000. Let's just do it for 3 months. He's like, okay, cool. But here's the deal. After you're doing that project, then you can do a bigger project, or you can go to a retainer. It's all about the latter. And it's different for every type of business. But what we did with them was we would do a 3-month project. And we came up with 3 months because he told me, well, after about 2 months, they start seeing a lot of ROI and results. I'm like, perfect, let's do 3 months. Because you don't want to just do 2 months, and then they just start seeing it, and then it ends, because people have a hard time from stopping and starting. And so when they start seeing, if it's at 3 months, at 2 months, they started seeing a lot of results. And so I said, well, cool. Now let's go to the clients and say, cool. Well, if you really want to put gasoline on the fire, we can really kind of take this up, some more. And we did that. And then we positioned a 12-month retainer, because we've already built trust. We showed results at $8,750. So now if you add 2,500 plus 15,000 plus the 8,750 times 12, it's well over 100K per client. Okay. That's about 75,000 more just for the first year. Not saying that they're not renewing and all that kind of stuff. So just changing your offering can make a huge difference. And then the next system I want to tell you is about prospecting. Now, a lot of times when agencies want to scale or grow faster, they think man, let's hire someone to do sales for us, or let's hire someone to do leads for us. And I think it's a mistake without having the first three systems. Remember, clarity, who you're going after, where you're going, positioning in the right way. Now we have the right offering. Now we can get to prospecting. And I look at it into kind of three channels, because a lot of people just do one. And maybe you have an inbound channel. Maybe you're really good at content writing and you have leads coming to you. Well, something changes in the Google algorithm, you're screwed. Or maybe you're really good at outbound. Well, maybe people are not picking up the phone as much because they're not at the office and this pandemic happened and they're on their cell phone, right? Or maybe, there's just other things that happen. But I like to build three channels. I like to build an inbound channel, an outbound channel, right? Like I'm actively going after people, and also a strategic partnership channel. And when I'm talking about strategic partnership channel, I'm talking about, well, it could be a publication, could be association, could be a software technology that your audience uses. Like, for example, we became the best partner in the world for Sitefinity back in the day when content management was really big. We did the same thing with Microsoft around SharePoint and CRM. And so they brought us a lot of business, but we also actively had people looking after us, or salespeople going out, calling our top 50 hit list so we can get into business with, LegalZoom or Hitachi or AT&T or Singular or Aflac, which were all clients of ours. But we also had an inbound channel because we would produce content. One of the best ways to produce content is a podcast. And I always, at conferences, I was like, how many people, like I was at this New York conference and I go, how many people have a podcast? And literally like only 5% of the room had podcasts. And this was all agency owners. I think it was like 800 agencies in there. And I was like, man, look around at the opportunity. So these guys come up to me and they go, hey, we were inspired to create a podcast. And this was like the next day. And they're like, we're creating a podcast. Will you be first guest? I'm like, of course. So the next day they come up to me and they go, hey, can you do it in our hotel room? And I was like, and literally they went out that day, they bought all the mics, they got this sign. I'm like, you want me to do in a hotel room? I was like, well, first I told everybody, I was like, oh, here's the room just in case I get killed. But it was really pretty cool. They still have a really amazing podcast. You should go check it out. But a podcast allows you to do outreach. It allows you for sales. Like first, when we reach out to people on our podcast to have them on the show, first we're looking for great content so we can create inbound leads from that. A lot of times that turns out to be a client in outbound outreach. And also sometimes they become a really good strategic partnership. So podcast really has everything there. So now let's talk about sales, right? Now that we're getting leads, both from, all the major channels, and even if one channel closes, got the two other ones to, hold you up until you fixed that other one. But a lot of times you're chatting with the wrong prospect and you waste a lot of time, with them. And I had always trained my salespeople to qualify really, really quick. And if you remember this, NBAT, and these are the kind of the first four things that I asked to see if they're the right prospect for me. First, what is their need? Does their need match up with our core value, what we can do? Like something that can take down your agency really quick is doing stuff that you're not really good at. So you got to make sure it matches up with the need. That's really easy. Okay. The next is the budget. And about probably 50% of you asked for the budget. And then out of that 50%, maybe 50% of that actually gets the budget from the client. So I want to give you something where you can get the budget 99% of the time. And it just starts off first. What's your budget? And a lot of times what the client will say, which you'll tell me, is like, well, I don't know, you tell me, or I don't have a budget. And sometimes it depends on your personality too, of how I do this. I'll be like, cool, I love working with people that don't have a budget. So I don't have to worry about money. We can do all kinds of really cool things. And you'll watch their eyes get and go like, and I'll be like, oh, so you do have budget. And then it kind of goes to what I call the reverse auctioneer. And you remember what I was telling you beforehand, in like when you're doing reviews, if you start off with something bad, they're going to remember that. Same thing when you do a range. If I go, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. If are you trying to stay around $1,000, 2,000? Any number I say after 1,000, you're going to remember 1,000. So that's why I call it reverse auctioneer. I go, I just need to know what kind of range you're trying to stay around, so I know if we can help you out. Are you trying to stay around $1 billion, $1 million, $100,000, 10,000, 5,000, $1,000? What is it? And I start really high because I'm trying to shock them. Okay, and then they'll lift up and they'll tell me the budget. The next is authority, and you can't really judge their titles. So a lot of times I would ask, cool, now that I know you need this, how does this match up to your overall business strategy for 2021 or 2022? And they'll say, I don't know. Well, who knows? That's Bob. Who's Bob? He's the CEO. Cool. Can we get Bob on the call? It's an easy way to transition to get the decision maker on there. The next is timing. We've all been, on pitches where they want it yesterday and just unrealistic. Well, if they're a nightmare now, they're going to be a big nightmare later on. So after I qualify them, I always go to what I call the 3 I's. And this will help you out greatly as well. Once you figure out what they need, be like, what's the biggest issue you're trying to figure out? And that's important, rather than going, hey, I need a website. Okay, cool. And then you just do a pitch for a website. No, what's the real problem? Well, it's the lack of leads. Oh, okay. Well, what's the impact of those leads? Well, the impact is go out of business if I don't get enough leads. How much is a lead worth to you? How many leads are you wanting? And so you start asking questions in order for them to put a value on it. And then you ask them, how important is that? So for example, a lot of people will do a proposal. They'll send, for, the statement of work, and then crickets, right? And you don't hear from them. One of the easiest ways to follow up, rather than saying, hey, just calling to check in with the proposal, did you make a decision yet? Like, that's a begging strategy. That's coming from the bottom of the barrel. What if you could go, hey, I haven't heard from you in a couple of weeks. Do you still have that lead generation that $1 million lead generation problem we talked about? Oh, you didn't solve that? Is that still important to you? Yeah, I'm glad I called too. Sign here, right? So it gives you that. And then I want to give you, in parting, one last tip for proposals. A lot of you send over proposals and they just go silent. They go dark. And I want to give you something to stop that completely from ever happening ever again. Is that pretty important to you? Well, stop sending the freaking proposal. Don't ever send the proposal until you can actually review it with them first. Because if you want to race to the bottom, congratulations, you're going to win if you keep sending the proposal. Now you're probably like, well, if I don't send the proposal, how are they going to sign the proposal? Well, you got to review it with them. And then a lot of times people will be like, just send it. Oh no, I need to review it with you first. Well, no, that's not how we work. And be like, well, if that's important for you to send the proposal without allowing us to review it with you, we may not be the best fit for you. You got to think, you are training them. You're either being trained or you're training them to be a good client. Because I have a motto, there's no such thing as a bad agency client. There's only a bad prospect or a bad process. And this is where you can get to a point, like if you start doing all these different systems, you can start handpicking your clients. And you only want to work with the good ones, okay? And then you're going to probably think, what about RFPs? Well, there's 2 winners to every RFP. The one that wins the deal and the one that never, or the first one out. And I always tell people, RFP really stands for request for punishment, or, real effing problem. There's a lot of other ones there too. And in parting, the last thing I'll tell you before I take questions, if there's any questions, if you say you're too busy, you're not charging enough. And I can tell you by consulting and managing large masterminds of just agency owners, you're not charging enough. And that's one of the easiest ways to scale and double your business. It's not about getting more clients. It's about getting more of the right ones, paying the right fees that you want to charge. So in recap, think about, we talked about clarity. You need to have clarity of where you're going, who you're actually going after. You have to be positioning in the right way by asking questions and making them the superstar. You have to have the right offering in the right place to build trust, to speed up the sales process, in order to get the long-term relationships at the price you want. You have to have multiple channels for prospecting. You have to have a sales system for qualifying, asking the right questions to follow up, and to close deals faster. There's also 3 other real important systems, because I see a lot of agencies crash and burn because now they're really good at sales, but they stink at delivery, they stink at operations, and they stink at leadership and building more leaders within the organization. If you want to know more about that, just go to jasonswenk.com/playbook, request access to it, and we'll tell you more about that. So see if there's any questions. I'll unshare my, I'll stop sharing. And Alex, do you want to read the questions to me if there's questions, or how do you want to do this? Or maybe Alex stepped away. Maybe I bored the shit out of him. I don't know. Okay. He says, please read. All right. Well, you guys type your questions out. I see Lisa says, I've not been charging enough to 13 clients. How is the best way to transition to my clients paying more? So we recently, about 6 months ago, we went through this in our mastermind, and one of the agency owners had about, I think about 13 clients he was undercharging. And I said to him, I said, and we go, well, all right. He realized that he was charging about half of what he's charging to the new clients coming in. I said, well, cool. Double the rates for the clients, chat with them about it. He goes, man, I'm going to lose all of them. I would say, you'll probably lose half, but the other half will actually make up for it. But let's just do it, because you're losing money on it. Like, it's opportunity cost. So after a little pushing and peer pressure, which is always good about masterminds, right? He did it. And he came back 2 weeks later and goes, guys, surprisingly, everyone said yes. And that added $60,000 more a month in reoccurring by just raising prices on the clients that they were losing money. So it was really pretty cool. So any other questions? Or I know I didn't answer everybody's burning questions about growing your agency. Let's see. And when you do this, put a Q next to it, just so I know it's a question rather than just a comment. Makes it easier for me. Eugene says, how do you distinguish a good fit prospect from bad fit prospect? They might not like someone playing their own game rather than theirs. Eugene, I go through the questions that I went, like the NBAT and the 3 I's, and I determine it. And I look for, if they're combative, if they're a jerk, I'm like, hey, I'm not the right fit for you, and go away. Like when, like for example, when people apply to the mastermind, about 50% people get in, and we take them through, like we look at the application, we look at the video they send, we chat with them, and if they don't fit the mold that we're looking for, and that mold is different for everybody, then we say no. So that's the easiest way to do that. Lisa says, how do you show them you're worth more? Well, it's about the results. And one of the ways that we would come up with our pricing is really kind of 2 ways. One way, we would actually start measuring our results. And I find a lot of agencies don't measure the results. And if you don't measure your results, you kind of just charge what everybody else is charging, and you're racing to the bottom. But if you actually start looking, going, man, I produced this client $1 million from this website we did, or this pay-per-click campaign that we did. They made $1 million, and I charged them $1,000 a month. Holy cow, I'm way undercharging. So what we do, and I still do this today, and that's why we're always raising our pricing. We'll take the average, like, so we'll look at all the value people have gotten, and then we'll average it up, and then we'll divide it by 10. And so we want a 10x return for everybody. And that's the minimum, right? That's the floor. Now, if someone chats with me, and this happened to me, I had a company call us for a website back a long time ago, and I rocked the call. Like, I just completely crushed it. And they invited me to come to their office. I come to their office, huge boardroom. I never heard of this company ever before. All these suits walk in. I'm like, holy cow, man, this is like 30 people listening to little old me talk about a website and go through the proposal because I'm reviewing it with them. And they go, Jason, man, I don't see any way we could ever go with you. I said, well, why not? It's like, your prices are way too low. I pitched like 20,000 for a website. And back then, at that time, it was really a big website. And they go, man, we're expecting 300,000. I'm like, damn. So I go back to the office. I tell people, they're like, who'd you meet with? I was like, some company I've never heard of, Berkshire Hathaway. It's like one of the largest companies in the world. I'm an idiot. And I realized from that point, if you start asking the budget and then figuring out their expectations, you should raise, because you could lose a deal because you're not charging enough, because they'll devalue it. Case in point, chatting to someone about LinkedIn ads, and they charge like $300. I'm like, how good could you be for charging $300? Like, I just went on to the next one. So come up with your floor and then figure out their expectation. You can meet them there. Let's see, what is it? Alex told me to make an announcement about an upcoming roundtable next month that I will be on. It's called User Acquisition for Digital Agencies, How to Find New Clients. All right. Well, it seems like that's all the questions. Guys, go to the website, reach out. That's the easiest way to engage with me, or hit me up on Instagram, which is just jswank. But you can find all those links on jasonswank.com. Check out the podcast. We have thousands of pieces of free content for you that I wish I had when I was running and scaling my agency. But love to help you out, and take care, guys. See ya.